One tiny little word, so many uses. Today we're finishing up our three-part series on the Spanish word sé. Comencemos, amigos. What's up, language leaders? Welcome back to another video. My name is Erica, here to help you love, learn, and live the Spanish language. So guys, if you have been following our series so far, you have learned the following uses of the word sé. We've called them the passive, the impersonal, the reflexive, and the reciprocal. And today we're going to learn how you can use this word sé to replace le or les. Now, obviously to understand this one, you need a little bit of prior knowledge about direct and indirect object pronouns. And obviously those are topics in and of themselves. So what we're going to do today is simply give you some examples so that you can start to just get a flow of how we would normally use the direct and indirect object pronouns in a Spanish sentence. And then we'll see how sé comes into place in some cases. So even if you're not so familiar with pronouns so far, I think you'll be able to follow along. So go ahead and hang with me. Now, I do want you to see just how short and simple these sentences can be. But for those cases in which you do want to go ahead and add on the he and the she, I will have in parentheses in these sentences the él and the ella, just so that you know where you could put them if you wanted to, but you do not have to make the sentences grammatically correct. Okay? All right, let's start with this example sentence. He gave us the pencil. Nos dio el lápiz. The nos in this sentence, this is our indirect object pronoun. Why? Well, because it answers the question, to whom? To whom was the pencil given? Well, to us. Nos means to us. So if we were to look at this sentence very literally, what we're saying is, to us, he gave the pencil. Okay. So again, we're working with he gave us the pencil. Let's shorten it. Say we've already established in a previous sentence that we're talking about a pencil, and we don't need to say the word pencil anymore. So we're just going to say it this time. He gave it to us. Nos lo dio. We still have the nos, that hasn't changed. That's our indirect object pronoun showing to whom. But now we have another pronoun in this sentence as well, the lo. This is our direct object pronoun because it answers the question, what? What was given to us? Well, it was el lápiz, the pencil. Nos lo dio. He gave it to us. Again, if you're looking at it literally, just so that you can understand each word, to us, it, he gave. And I want you to notice that we moved the word it before the verb, dio. These pronouns need to go before the verb. Now, we would follow this same pattern for these sentences as well. Me lo dio. He gave it to me. Te lo dio. He gave it to you. And again, nos lo dio. He gave it to us. But something odd happens when we need to say, he gave it to you if we're speaking formally using usted, or he gave it to him, her, you all, or them. Because instead of me, te, or nos, we have to use le or les. So if we want to say, for example, he gave it to him, if we were to follow the same pattern that we've been using so far, we'd have to say, le lo dio. But we cannot do that. We can't combine le or les with lo or la. Just think of it that these two L pronouns, they cannot be together in a sentence. So what do? This is where sé comes in. We use sé. So he gave it to him, se lo dio. You'll notice that sé replaces le, and it can also replace les in a plural situation. So to say he gave it to them, remember, we can't say les lo dio. We can't have les and lo together. So what do we say? Se lo dio. Did you notice that these two sentences, he gave it to them and he gave it to him, are actually the exact same translation in Spanish? Se lo dio. So how do we know who we're talking about? Well, context. Remember that if we're using these pronouns in a sentence, it's because we're already in a conversation. We've already established who we're talking about, what we're talking about, so there's usually not going to be any confusion there. All right, let's practice with a few sentences, but first I'll point out one more thing. We've been using lo so far as our direct object because we've been talking about a pencil, el lápiz. It's a masculine noun. Now, if we want to use a pronoun to replace a feminine noun, like la rosa, then we simply need to use la instead. For example, le dio la rosa. He gave her the rose. Let's shorten that. He gave it to her. Se la dio. La, because we're referring to a rose. Okay, let's practice. You'll see one example sentence, and then I'll just have you modify it a bit. I sent her the letter. Le mandé la carta. Say, I sent it to her. Se la mandé. Did you remember to say la? Because we're talking about a feminine noun, la carta. Now say, I sent it to them. Se la mandé. Remember, it's the exact same translation because se replaces both le in the singular and les in the plural. Another example sentence. I sold my car to him. Le vendí mi carro. Now say, I sold it to him. Se lo vendí. Now say, I sold it to her. Se lo vendí. The exact same translation. And we're using lo because we're speaking about a masculine noun, el carro. Let's learn one more thing. Instead of lo and la, as we've been using as our direct object pronouns, to replace a plural noun, we'll use los or las instead. For example, he gave her the dogs. Le dio los perros. Now say, he gave them to her. Se los dio. Example sentence, she gave him the letters. Le dio las cartas. Now say, she gave them to him. Se las dio. Las, because we're referring to letters in the plural. Las cartas. All right, guys, that was fun. Can you come up with your own little short sentence that uses se to replace le or les? If so, I'd love to read it, so drop it in the comments below. And if you'd like to take it a step further and really start to master all of these parts of Spanish, but in a fun, in a real context, then sign up for the waiting list for Caminos, our Spanish story club coming very soon, where we'll put the spotlight on one piece of Spanish grammar or one aspect of the language at a time in a fun story so that you can have that repeated exposure to that part of Spanish in a fun context. You can sign up for the waiting list at the link below. That's all for today, guys, but until next time, don't forget to go out and live your new language today. Bye-bye.